survived the loss of her husband. But also, like, I had older brothers that I felt like they should have, or I wish that they would have offered more of that familiar role and, offered that like guidance and wisdom. But it just wasn't there. And so when I hear stories and I listen to you ladies talk about, your grandfather's presence and your father's presence, I always just longed for that and really missed out and, kind of had like a grudge or resentment that I didn't get that, protection or that care or that guidance or that love that I think young girls and just women need in their lives.
Yeah. When the two people in your life who are supposed to love you the most, your mother and your father, when those relationships are strained or go awry, it impacts how we live our entire lives as adults. So Dr. Joy, I will start with you. Tell me, what was the relationship with your father?
It was interesting in that my mother and father divorced when I was 1. So that's very early. And at that time, my mother and I moved to California. So I lived there for several years before my grandmother got sick. So my relationship with my father wasn't in existence. But then when I went back to Mobile, then we did have a relationship. He would come and pick me up every weekend, something similar to what you had with your father. But then when I moved back to California, then it began to be strained again. Somewhat impacted by my stepmother. There was some conflict there. When I would go back to Mobile for visits, he was ever present. So it was like if we were in each other's company, there was a relationship. When I was out of sight, it was like I was out of mind. That was the strain that was there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, who was like responsible for, like, did he proactively call you and see you? Or as a child, were you adultized in a way where you were the one keeping that relationship alive?
I would say I was the one that was keeping that relationship alive while I was living in California.
I mean, it's hard to kind of comprehend that as a child, but how did that make you feel? I guess, did you feel like this relationship was not viable on its own if you were not the one keeping it alive? And if so, how did that make you feel?
That's very challenging. And the reason why I'm saying it's very challenging, many times when people go through a divorce, one of the parents or both parents often feed a lot of negativity into the relationship, speaking about one parent versus another. But my mother didn't do that. My mother was very kind in that whatever your father is, he will reveal it. And so that was always the message in the back of my head, that I'm going to see who you are, who I am to you, and who you are to me. You will demonstrate that. So building that relationship or continuously making the conversation, that was frustrating because I felt that he should have. However, I had another savior, per se, and that was my stepfather. So he stepped into the role. So I didn't feel abandoned. I had some issues of abandonment of why not me? But looking at the dynamics of his relationship with his wife and my brothers, that was different.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Your stepfather stepped in and loved you appropriately, like he was present in your life?
Oh, by far, still is today.
I feel like sometimes as mothers, we remarry hoping that void gets filled. Did that fill the void of your father being absent or no?
Oh, definitely. Okay. Because he loved me. I'll give you a story. And this is very funny. I wanted to go to a dance that was taking place at a club. And my mother said, definitely you can't go. And I said, I know what to do. I'll go to my stepfather and I'll ask him. And he told me, he said, no, you can't go. And I was so angry and I was so hurt. I began to cry. And he just held me and said, baby, that's just not the place for you to go.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust them. So he stepped in a different manner.
Right.
Or he stepped in as that father figure to secure me of understanding it wasn't just a no. It was, I'm protecting you for the rest of your life.
How old were you?
14.
Oh, okay. A teenager.
14 to 15, yes.
That's why I think it's so important to acknowledge that, yes, Black men are present in our lives, whether they're a biological father or not. There are fathers who are out there doing great things. And I hate this narrative of this like absentee Black father, because they do exist. But Era, I'm happy that you brought this up, because your fatherhood story is different, I think, from Dr. Joy. So tell me your relationship with your father and your story.
Okay, so I have a mother and a father. And until I was like 26, 27, my understanding of them being my parents was that they were my parents. I didn't find out till I was 26 that I was adopted. So
neither of your parents are your biological parents?
Neither one. Neither one of them. But growing up, I did not know that. I was adopted by Black people. I think it'd be different if I was like in an Asian household, or like everyone was Caucasian. They were not.
Yeah.
And I remember my mother always said, Jesus makes everyone different. And when you were in a big Black family, there are different shades of Black. So it wasn't uncommon. Some of my cousins have the same mother and father, and there is one that's lighter skin complexion and one that's not.
Yeah.
So I didn't look around and didn't say anything. We were all African American, everyone. So I did not question it ever. I wasn't loved wrong. I didn't spend like the first 5 years in foster care. I was adopted from birth. So within 48 hours, I was there in their custody. So it wasn't until I got to be 26, 27 that I figured out that they were not my biological parents.
How did that feel at 26, 27, to have your entire world just disrupted, you know?
I kind of felt like the family secret. I felt like someone or something along the way thought that I wasn't capable of understanding that information.
There's so much conversation about our community, our relationship with each other, about Black men and politics and, you know, their desires, et cetera, et cetera. What is something that you wish more people understood about Black men?
I think the biggest thing is that Black men have feelings. So often you hear, you don't hear from Black men. And that's one of the reasons why I do the podcast, because there are men out there that see the issues that are in the community and they're doing extraordinary things. And it needs to be highlighted. I mean, for the most part, what are we going to hear? We're going to hear the more than likely the negative stereotypes. And even our celebrities, right? I mean, what were the big things that were going on today? Drake, Kendrick Lamar diss wars. That was huge. Diddy and his challenges, and not a story of a Black man that wants to transform his community. You're just not going to hear those things, and those are the stories that need to be told, because I think the negativity, and I'm sure we'll get into that, impacts how not just how we view ourselves, but then how our women view us too.
So you would say that Black men have feelings.
Yes.
That's what you're, okay. And what about you, Isaiah? What do you say?
I was going to go off of that, but to elaborate on that a little bit, I think that we don't get enough credit and enough grace. Just like Black women, we've all suffered here, specifically in America. It's been a lot of things going on throughout our years and the generations to carry on. There's a lot of damage and trauma done. And I feel like for Black men specifically, because it's been labeled that as men, we're not allowed to have feelings and outwardly speak about how we feel. It leads people to kind of disregard the way we feel. Therefore, the way we show up is different a lot of times in spaces where we don't feel comfortable or heard. So that internalization just turns into more anxiety built up in Black men. So I think people need to understand that we deserve grace and we want to be better for our families and our communities. And I think a lot of times it's the narrative basically says that we don't really care. We don't care about our kids. We don't care about getting jobs. We're not as ambitious as Black women. They pit us against each other, when I think that that's a lie. I just think that we might not always verbalize the way we feel because we don't feel safe. So we deserve those safe spaces. And that comes with being given grace by everybody.
Do you feel safe with Black women, or are you saying you feel unsafe in society
I think in society in general, but a lot of I'm lucky because I've been raised by great Black women, but a lot of my brothers have not felt seen or heard in spaces with Black women.
Really?
And I think it's just because the feelings, I think it's just based on some stereotypes of like how men are supposed to carry themselves, even when they're dealing with hard times. So while they have been supported, I think sometimes their feelings may have been disregarded.
Let me know if you need anything. Sounds like something that makes you feel better, not the person you're saying it to. It's like, I'm so uncomfortable being confronted with your grief.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to do is say, well, let me know if you need anything. And then I can feel good about myself.
Because
that
you
I
got
said
that off your
something.
chest.
Right.
Yeah. You
And then I
relieve
can
yourself
go
of the
back-
responsibility too.
Yes.
Right. So it never feels sincere to me when people, even though they may be sincere, it doesn't land in the way that they may want it to.